Well, Bev, in fact, we thought that it would be over by now, but you can see behind me there's still a large crowd here at what they call Ground Zero, the site where they have a memorial now across the road from what was the Sari Club, and next to me here is what used to be Paddy's Bar. This has been going for more than 2 hours already, and there's been everything from Hindu cultural dance and traditional ceremonies. There have been flowers. I've never seen this memorial sort of like I've seen it today. This is clearly the biggest commemorative event in years, possibly bigger than the 10th anniversary. And there are people here from probably all over the world, certainly dozens of Australians, including many people who were in the Sari Club, families of people who died, and many people who were injured. There was a ceremony at the Australian consulate in Denpasar earlier this morning. This is now the main Balinese event, and later tonight this event may well run for hours into another event after 11 p.m, which is when they will have a minute's silence to mark the exact time when the first bomb exploded at Paddy's pub next to me, and 45 seconds later the main bomb went off behind me 20 years ago. That will be probably the most emotional part of the ceremonies today.
Yeah. You know, and you talk about this probably being the biggest commemoration that you've ever seen of the 2002 events. What sort of lasting impact do you think it's had on the people there?
Well, look, I've been to Bali so many times. I've been to this memorial and this site many times, and as I said, I've never seen it like this today. But I have to say, I think the impact of the bombing on Bali itself as an economy, as a place, perhaps, you know, it turned tourism away for a couple of years, but things did bounce back, you know, within a few years. I think it was back to where it had been before. Certainly, I don't think I realised myself just how many Balinese, how many Indonesians have lasting injuries that have destroyed their lives or upended their lives for such a long time. We've talked to people who, you know, suffered serious burns that still need treatment 20 years on, people who have, you know, glass in their eyes, people who've had serious injuries to their hands, their limbs, who've lost their limbs. But I think in the end, you know, before the pandemic, this part of Kuta really was as thriving and bustling as it had ever been. The pandemic, I think, has had a bigger impact on Bali, and other parts of Bali have bounced back better from that than Kuta. I think Kuta itself is perhaps out of fashion a little bit. It's certainly not the trendy, popular place it once was. So some of the, you know, the downturn here in Kuta is not necessarily what you see elsewhere in Indonesia, but it doesn't necessarily stem from the bombings 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting that you are close to the site, but there is still a disagreement over what should happen and what sort of commemoration or memorialisation of the events should really be marked there in a physical sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's very sad to see all these years later that the Sari Club site is still vacant. It's still a derelict block of land. The owner of that land has been trying to sell it for that time, and he has held out, hoping to sell it to first the Bali Peace Park Association. That was an organisation set up to buy the Sari Club site specifically to make it into a peace park. They even had designs drawn up to turn it into a very green space where people could go and reflect. The memorial here, as good as it is not on the site itself. It doesn't have much greenery. So there is still a wish and a push to do that, but certainly the Australian government, I think the momentum has been lost with the change of government in Australia. There is no Australian government offer at the moment to provide the $4.5 million that the owner wants. So, you know, he has plans to turn the site into a restaurant, a hotel, other sort of commercial ventures, and I think probably in the months ahead now we will see once and for all that he will either sell it at a reduced price or go ahead with some sort of development.
Yeah, interesting. And appreciate your reporting over the course of the last few days. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Beth.